Up to the scene with my cylinder missing. Pull up to the scene with my cylinder missing. Bigger up to my competition.
The 99 Jams Trick and Trina Morning Show is paying your bills.
Big check.
Big lunch bills. We know times are hard right now, and we want to help out any way we can.
Check in with us every morning on the Trick and Trina Morning Show at 7:30 for your chance to win $100.
To go over on the other side where the Diversity Justice Building is. So they are now headed towards I-95. We're on the block just north of downtown Miami. The police department did, and the FHP officers, did try to prevent this from happening. But obviously they're not going to hit one of these protesters. So they ultimately allowed them to get up here on the interstate. So anyone, and then if you could pan around and see the traffic out here, you can only imagine the traffic coming over from Miami Beach on the MacArthur Causeway headed westbound. That's going to be completely shut down. Miami-Dade police helicopter up above us in a low orbit, keeping a close eye on this situation. But they have these protesters that are moving now westbound, headed towards I-95. Actually up on the top, just about a quarter mile now, east of the entrance ramp to I-95. We initially thought they were going to go to the City of Miami Police Department, but that didn't transpire. And we are making this trek or walk here about this. And under Keith's estimation, about, I can't see the helicopter pictures, but about 1,000 people a part of this rally. We're up at the very beginning of it. Those at the front of it are actually stopping at certain points, slowing down. So those moving at a slower gait behind us can actually catch up, and they allow people to get a water break and those types of things. But this is their plan for their free speech rights to execute them concerning what they think they say are injustices on a lot of platforms concerning not just law enforcement but other areas along with here. And this is the trek that they are now making. And if we can turn around there and show behind us, show our viewers behind us what it actually looks like as they're walking up and walking forward here onto the interstate. Obviously, not advisable thing to do in terms of stopping the traffic. I frankly wondered how they were going to be able to do that. There were some tense moments between drivers who were attempting to get here on the interstate. I didn't see anyone hurt or injured along those lines concerning this. So this certainly is going to last for a while now that we're up here on the interstate. And those drivers, if you have family members that are traveling in this direction, attempting to head westbound on the MacArthur Causeway, but now they're actually going to completely block the interstate and have a seat out here as those in the rear of the protest group come up to catch up to them. And they are all kneeling, raising their hands, right hand, right fist, and shouting no justice, no peace. So just after 6 o'clock here in South Florida, now the interstates, this section of our interstate has been shut down. And if you pan off to the west, you'll see the police units that attempted to be able to stop them from coming up here. But that was an unsuccessful effort by those 4 units from the Florida Highway Patrol. And obviously those Florida Highway Patrol troopers acting with caution as they don't want to hit anyone who is out here. And we don't know what the next stop is, but it's apparently going to be quite a hike because we are now up here on the highway, and the Miami-Dade Police Department helicopter keeping a close eye and a close orbit to their aviation unit on this group, where they are, and what their whereabouts are, and all the traffic. If you're watching us in anywhere near downtown Miami, plan on getting on I-95 or going west out to the Airport Expressway, make other plans and make a detour, go up to the 112 to the north, take US 1 to the south, because there are about 1,000 people that are now on top of the interstate just east of I-95.
Downtown Miami.
We actually paused here for just a moment. Let's take this in and see exactly if there's an individual that's going to speak here. Can you give me an idea what the sounds like? Justice! Now! Justice! Now! Justice! Now!
Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now.
He is on the interstate where protesters, as you can see, have brought traffic to a standstill right now. They have stopped in the middle of the highway. This is very similar to what we saw yesterday during protests in downtown Miami. And Willard Shepard is there with protesters, hearing their chants. You can see that there are people in those cars who have been basically caught up in this situation. Willard, can you set the stage of where exactly you are on the interstate, if you can hear me?
Yes, Alina, where we are really on the entrance ramps to I-95 are just about a quarter mile to the west of us. If you come over the MacArthur Causeway, cut through downtown and the Adrian Art Center just to the north, and the Perez Art Museum just there to the south, this new area where they're putting up that new high-rise bridge so that individuals won't have to get caught up in the traffic in downtown Miami. That's exactly where we are and where we are located. This woman able to make it through the traffic right now. She was at the very beginning of this and already on the entrance ramp, and fortunately she was able to get by without any tensions there. And that's where we're located. If you get on I-95, transit I-95 from downtown Miami, this is those entrance ramps off of Northeast 2nd. Manny, move over with me here so we don't have an accident. And there's another driver able to come by us at our location right now. And we're right over the railroad tracks that head into downtown Miami. So that's exactly where they have congregated and stopped at this juncture. And that's a main artery on a Sunday afternoon. Clearly not as much traffic as normal, and also because of the times in which we're living now due to the pandemic, there's not as much traffic. But there's still, I can see it backed up all the way down, going by the Perez Art Museum.
This is Miami. This is the Miami protesters protesting on I-95.
It looks like the police department has actually shut down
in
the interstate
downtown
at that point, so that no drivers get up to where these protesters are, at least limiting the drivers that have already done so that there's no confrontations between them. Because I did see when some people were trying to get onto the
side of
the
protesters here.
There was some tension back and forth there between
I understand their pain and frustration. I really do understand it. I do understand.
We'll see what happens as that group of units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units on the west. If this group goes further west, if they're allowed to pass there, or exactly what is going to transpire now. But now I'm seeing even more units, a whole list of units that are coming to this area. Actually, they're driving in the wrong direction on the highway, but they have the authority to do that and have been able to close off the interstate. That's City of Miami police units who have been deployed here, and we'll see if those are the tactical units at this location, and they are right near the entrance to I-95 there. And these units, we've seen them move from one place to another. They came over to Bayside when they were there, and now let's see if this is the tactical units, those officers who have special training with shields and a variety of other things. So the group is starting to move westbound here. So let's see what transpires, Alina and Keith, at this point, as the leaders of this group are moving further westbound, and the officers are doing their best to block with their units. And there's probably 15 or 20 units that have set up a line there on the interstate. And yes, these are the tactical officers from the City of Miami Police Department. You see them moving forward. They're walking eastbound. And the protesters are moving westbound. And we will see what transpires here. When we were at Bayside about 45 minutes ago, we did see the protesters attempt to keep the masses of a group that's out here away from the police and no direct confrontations. But there were a handful, but no one was taken into custody, and we didn't see anything really get way out of hand. And hopefully that will continue. But now the police department has put its tactical team and drawn, we'll say, this line in the sand here. We've seen them retreat during the course of the day. They'll do this, and then they'll back off another 20, 25 yards so that there are no confrontations. And the protesters as well, and Manny, you can see that they have stopped. We can go here in the center, but let's see if that distance between the two of them, about 10 yards or so, between Florida Highway Patrol is out there, City of Miami Police Department tactical units, and the protesters off on the east, about 10 yards apart from each other, and they're doing their best on the protester side to keep their distance and line at this point. And we've seen this earlier today at Bayside, but in much closer proximity. And we will see what transpires here over the next few minutes. Lena, let me give you an idea of what your chants are in yelling here over on this side of where the protesters are. Can't breathe, obviously a reference to Mr. Floyd and sadly his final moments on the ground there in Minneapolis, telling the police officer who had the knee on his neck that he was unable to breathe anymore. A short time after that, residents telling them that Mr. Floyd appeared to be in tremendous peril. But we obviously know what transpired and what happened. And to this point, the situation is holding.
On the left of your screen, that's our NBC6 Willard Shepard. He is there on the interstate in the middle of what appears to be a face-off between a line of police officers who are blocking ramp and protesters. Protesters there who have made their way onto an interstate. There is a distance, there's quite some distance between the officers and the protesters, but as you can see on the right-hand side, which is Chopper 6, hovering over the scene, they're on an interstate, and they are just stopped right there.
That line across the MacArthur Expressway there, those are actually the police on the right side of your screen. Those are the police, and they are in, Willard was saying, in their tactical uniforms, which means, shields and things like that. It's like, yeah, I got you, Willard, go ahead.
Jake, okay, I hate to see this, but now brought into this equation is these group of motorcycle riders that we see during the MLK holiday. You see them, these wheels up, guns down groups who are down on the street below. And I hate to say as a member of this community, it's the last thing we need to see at this point is another kind of situation to be injected in this. And this is the reaction of the protesters looking down below, seeing them down there on the street. 112! Black Lives Matter! Okay.
Really? Look like they're trying to get up there on the freeway?
Okay. Yeah, no, we're okay. We just had to make sure that we're in a safe spot here. So, Manny, stay off on this side of the rail. Now, the interstate is actually east of here. The police are completely shut down. So, their plan, Keith, is to get up here and become enjoined with this group, I don't see how that's going to happen because the police have already shut the interstate down to the east of here. And there's no way to get up on the interstate really now whatsoever at all. Also, this group of these riders, these Black Lives riders, they generally communicate through social media, and we have seen during the MLK holiday weekend over the last several years that when it comes to their social media, you have to give them credit. They're pretty efficient about being able to pick rally points and determine where they will rally and then move on. And clearly, this is a large group that has gotten together already that we see down below. Okay, back up here to what has transpired on top of the interstate. Man, if you can pan off here, there are more officers who have actually arrived out here. And they are at the ready, batons in hand. And it appears that the Dream Defenders and Black Lives Matters group, they are now retreating and heading back towards the ramp they came on in downtown Miami. Anthony, help me here.
Willard, does it seem that the group is actually getting smaller? Because we know that a lot of them stayed back in downtown Miami by Bayside, where there was another tactical unit trying to get people to disperse. Does it look like the crowd where you are is any smaller?
Keith, no, not really. And you know, I don't have the global viewpoint and the aerial viewpoint that I can see from my helicopter. But in terms of just the mass of the crowd together, it looks like it's about the same size it was as when we first left the American Airlines arena. And that's going back about 2 hours or more ago. I don't see it dissipating. I do see, which is good news, right, that the confrontation didn't actually transpire between these officers who are up here on the entrance ramp to I-95 and actually on the interstate with the protesters. They both kept their distance, and the protesters now are actually headed back eastbound towards the ramp to take them back into downtown Miami, and we will have to continue our trek with them to see what their next stop was. We initially were told that they were going to head to the police department where Jamie Garola was in downtown Miami, but they diverted and went off in a different direction. So, Manny, let me help you down. And we need to get on the move here again to see what the next stop is in this trek of theirs through the course of the day. We're now an hour and 45 minutes away from the curfew in the city of Miami. And the city of Miami police chief and mayor have made clear that they can execute their free speech rights peacefully up until that point. But any person in the city of Miami's jurisdiction has to be in their residence as of 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. in Miami-Dade County. Keith and Melina, let me send it back to you.
So, if you're just joining us at 6:15, this is a protest that started several hours ago near the American Airlines Arena in downtown Miami. On the left, you're seeing Willard Shepard, who's actually on the interstate with protesters who got on the interstate, had I think I'm back. There were some protesters who got on the interstate, made their way up to a police line. There were some tense moments there, and right now what appears to be happening is that they are now making their way back into downtown Miami. I want to make a note that Governor Ron DeSantis, his press secretary, has tweeted out that he has activated the National Guard. Currently there are 150 guardsmen in Miramar, 150 in Camp Blanding, and 100 arrived in Tampa. This tweet goes on to say these specially trained units support law enforcement in many ways, i.e. traffic and crowd control, all to preserve the peace and public safety. And this is something that we have seen other states do, right, Keith?
Right, they did it a lot quicker though. And people were saying yesterday, a lot of critics were saying the governor should have done this yesterday. Nevertheless, there are 450 troops being dispersed throughout the state of Florida. And we should also mention that this has been going on for about 2 hours and about 2.5 hours at this point. Don't know that there was a set time, although the Mayor Suarez seemed to think it was from 3 to 6.
And he said people started gathering around 2, a little
Right.
after 2. So this has been going on now for several hours, and we don't know how long it's going to go on for. There's no set plan here. Initially, protesters had given our crews on the ground there an indication that they were headed toward the City of Miami Police Headquarters in downtown Miami, but we've seen them take all sorts of detours over the last few hours, and it's something very similar to what we saw happen yesterday.
This is how it started yesterday. I mean, if you could say a protest has gone off flawlessly, this kind of has, because they're behaving. You have, the voices at the head of this pack, and each time they meet a police line, they do back down, which is great, because the potential there for this to end really badly is obviously there. But the protesters are backing down. They are staying peaceful. They're vociferous, obviously, carrying their signs, and they've been all over downtown Miami. Again, this started a little bit before 3 o'clock, before 2, pardon me, at Bayside. This was at the Torch. It started there, and then went over to Bayside and AAA, and that's where most of our crews started to pick up their trek. From there, they started to head towards the police department, but they made a stop at the federal jail where they tried communicating with some of the inmates. And then they continued back into Bayside, and then you saw on the left side there, I believe that's where Arlene Bornstein is. She was over by the port, and the police drew a line in the sand. They would not let them up on the port ramp. They also told them they had 15 minutes to disperse. If they didn't, they would have been arrested. So we understand that all those folks have probably moved out of that area. No, Arlene, are you with us? Arlene is not with us. It's just her camera. Okay. Well, we know that they all moved out, and we haven't heard of any arrest either. So that's good news that they have moved out of the port area. Again, it was an unlawful assembly, is what the police were saying. Again, they drew a long line across the entrance to the port and also the exit to the port, so that nobody could walk back there. And they were given 15 minutes to get out of that area. They're told to head up north on US 1 or Biscayne Boulevard, and it's seemingly that everyone has complied and left that area.
It looks like every time, at least as far as we've seen from our perspective, from our vantage point, whether it's from the helicopter or from the different crews that we have around the area, it seems that each time there is that moment of face-off between officers and protesters eventually do retreat and then continue marching and following the orders of police. And I think it's interesting also to point out that, again, as this started developing, we saw a very a very large number of police officers around the City of Miami Police Headquarters. Our Jamie Garola was there. We even saw armored vehicles. We saw a very significant mobilization there. And it seems that as the afternoon has unfolded, they've moved some of these assets around downtown Miami in response to the different pockets of protesters that they've been seeing moving around the area.
As the protest turned into a march, but we saw about 50 or so bicycle police officers who kind of led the group through the streets, kind of rode with them. So that was the biggest police presence we had actually seen until we saw those tactical units over at the port. And what Willard just showed us here, this is Willard's camera, by the way, up on the MacArthur Causeway, the pass over there. It goes right through downtown. Anyhow, this is, again, the protesters just causing havoc on the roadways. They did this yesterday. They actually got on I-95 and shut down the road in both directions. They've kind of done the same thing here on the MacArthur Causeway.
And, this isn't just the only protest that's happening in South Florida today. There is another protest in Fort Lauderdale, and we want to head on over to Kim Wynn. Kim, you are at that other protest in Broward. Kind of set the stage. Tell us what you're seeing, what you're hearing.
Yeah, hey there, Alina. We are at Hazinga Park, where things are peaceful. Folks right now have just gathered in the park here They've been walking all around the city. They just stopped in front of the jail, and before that, they were walking just basically on Las Olas Boulevard. We're going to talk to some of the folks that are out here right now. How you doing, sir? So just tell me what you're doing out here, and what your message is.
Well, my message is we're here to basically fight police brutality. George Floyd lost his life, and again, the system is broken. We're here to fight against systematic racism. We've kneeled and they've ignored us. We've come out peacefully and they've ignored us. So we're coming here now begging for police brutality to end. In this country, it is the one thing that has divided us. As you see here, COVID-19 united us. We were all human beings, but COVID-19 decided to hit. But now when racism is an issue, we divide. And now all of a sudden, it's not your problem, it's not my problem. It's not fair.
Right. Tell us about today's protest. Things have been very peaceful out here right now. You know, we saw some of the things that went down in downtown Miami. Just tell me about the vibe here right now.
Overall here, the whole vibe is that we want to remain peaceful. Our whole idea is that we want to remain peaceful. We want to understand that who we are and who it is that we're fighting against. We're not here to fight against small businesses. We're not here to vandalize the community. We're here to get a message out, and the message is basically to end police brutality and to fight racism in our community. Unfortunately, our leadership has not done so. Donald Trump himself said that when the shooting starts, the looting starts. You gotta understand that that is not fair. Think about what we are as a country, and that is the leadership that we choose. All these people here, when they say fuck Donald Trump, excuse my French, that's not what they're saying. They're saying forget the system. Forget the system and the idealistic of the ideas that he embodies, that he possesses, that he brings to our country. Division is not what we are. United we stand, divided we fall. We were united as a country, we need to remain that way.
Thank you so much. And we're hearing some applause. Okay. So we're going to toss back to you guys right now. We just see some folks here getting up on the stage here at the park. But we're going to toss back to you guys right now in the studio.
All right, Kim, thank you for that. We want to check in with Willard Shepard. He's also following protesters. He continues to follow protesters in downtown Miami. Willard, where are you? What are you seeing? You see some tear gas?
Yeah, Alina, no tear gas, no tear gas. Remember I told you about these bikers? The bikers have now hooked up with the marchers, and the crowd is actually growing and growing significantly. We are right west of the Adrian Arts Center, and that is one of the bikers that was, revving their engines and their bikes here. Now, they are part of this as well, as we are just east of the Adrian Arts Center, and they are part of this, and when they arrived here, these protesters giving them loud cheers and these types of things as they were doing their wheelies going by. And so now you have mixed into this, in addition to all of the protesters that started out with the Dream Defenders, you now have these bikers who are also part of this and who arrived here just a short time ago. And we all know over the Martin Luther King weekend, the types of stunts and activities and all things that they have performed, and the situation that police had to deal with concerning how they were going to handle them. So we have a group of bikers popping wheelies right there that has been embedded now in this, and they are taking a route that looks like it's taking them down on the Biscayne Boulevard, coming by us. And it seems like they are taking a track that'll take them down Biscayne Boulevard, and those on foot head continued northbound up towards the area of Midtown. So Manny, as they head off to the right, and obviously we're not on our bike, we can't keep up with them, we're going to head back over here to the west to where those pedestrians that initially started this protest are moving along, and we do see a couple of these motorbikers embedded in along with them. So that plan that we talked about throughout the course of the afternoon, because of the trouble at the City of Miami Police Department last night, they're not walking in that direction. They're headed northbound, going up Northeast 2nd Avenue and headed up into the Midtown area. And they are at about 15th to 18th Street now, and we're now at the end of the line because of that detour that we made.
So, Willard,
we
I
will
wanted
see
to
where
jump in.
the next direction is.
I want to jump in for a moment.